All right, so welcome to another rapid fire business story of the week. This is part of our rapid fire series, and today we have an incredible guest with us, someone who's achieved extraordinary success and is here to share their unique business journey with you. We're excited to hear their insights, so let's welcome them to the show. All right, so as this is our rapid fire series, we've got 1 minute or less to answer each question. So in a minute or less, give us the elevator pitch to your story and your life. Go.
Yeah, so my name's Kevin. I work with businesses, ministries, and organizations to work with leadership development and communication practices. I've come to understand and realize that communication is the lifeblood of any organization and company. And if communication stops flowing, just like your blood would stop flowing, it stops working. And so I work with businesses to help them refine communication and get all of their teams moving in the right direction together.
So that's fascinating. And I would love to dig a little bit deeper. So tell us a bit more about what you're working on today that you're most passionate about and believe will have the biggest impact.
Yeah, most certainly. In the ministry side of my business, I work with churches. I was a pastor for a long time, and so I understand that world. But I'm working with churches right now to develop kind of an engagement process. Many churches are talking about how people inside of their context are really disengaged from the movement of God in their lives. They'll come and sit, but they won't actually dive into anything more profoundly or specifically. So I'm working with churches to be able to revolutionize or revitalize an antiquated system or a mentality that has kind of stopped working for a lot of churches and a lot of people. And I'm excited to be able to do this with a lot of smaller churches actually are kind of in the context of this, and they want to be able to have access to some of the same tools and same resources that some of these larger conglomerates do so that they can press in and experience some of the same results. And I'm excited to be able to develop it with them.
So this next question is one that every entrepreneur has dealt with. Tell us about a time where you failed. We often say failure is the first step to success. So think about a time where you failed in the past. What happened? What did you learn from it?
Yeah, so when I first started about 2.5 years ago in my business, I decided that I was going to launch a networking group for business owners, and I was offering them like a seat at the table. We're going to do leadership development. We're going to collaborate together on each other's businesses and advance on that level 1 day a month, or one morning a month, actually, about 3 or 4 hours in the morning. And there's a lot of processes out there that do these kind of things. You sit 12 different businesses at the table and deal with this kind of stuff. And I just couldn't get any traction on it. I had a couple of people that would sit around the table, but it wasn't anything that was moving. It wasn't shaking their ground. In fact, it just became like, I'll check it out and we'll see if it works. And then it became I'm too busy. And so I was wasting my time on it. I wasn't making any money on it. And it was really aggravating, and I really did feel like this is a failure, and I'm kind of embarrassed by the fact that I can't put 12 businesses around the table, let alone get them to pay, and so I had to kind of rethink it and go back to the drawing board and start something different. And through a couple different renditions and versions, I realized that they're not asking that question, and so I got to press into a different angle. You've got to work with business or ministry or whatever your angle is on the pressing need that they feel instead of what you feel. And I think that's what I came to realize, is that this is what I would want, but it's not something that they would want.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. And we're definitely going to have you back on the show to dive deeper into each of these questions. But for now, one thing that I often say is, and I tell this to my employees and the people who work with me and for me all the time, is that when a tree falls in the forest, if nobody hears it, did that tree actually fall? This brings me to this next question. How do you make sure that all of these amazing projects that you're involved in get noticed? What marketing and advertising methods have worked best for you? You've got a minute. Let's go.
This is actually something that I have just recently pulled the trigger on. Within the last, 8 weeks. I actually hired a marketing firm and took a big step to be able to believe in my own process and just know that I've got to get people behind the process. And so I hired a marketing firm to push this forward for me, and now I'm paying for marketing on a daily basis, but I'm also watching kind of some results come in. My process for the church work I do, the discipleship webinar that I host is a webinar. And so every Thursday I'm hosting a webinar for pastors who want to come and learn about this kind of process. And it's kind of a sales pitch. It's kind of a webinar teaching, give them value, but then also ask them for a sale. And honestly, I'm elated with it. From a dollars and cents standpoint, it's still too soon to see if it's actually going to pan out. But I'm now talking to people that I've never met. I'm interacting with people who I haven't known before. And so on that level, it's working, and it's giving me the traction I need to be able to grow my list and to be able to grow a potential clientele down the road.
That was so awesome. We're definitely going to dive deeper into this on a later show. And as we approach our last question, before we ask people how people can get a hold of you, how people can reach you, learn more about the work that you're doing in your company, and we will include all that information in the show notes, what I wanted to ask you is, what is one piece of advice that you would offer to your younger self, to our audience, and to somebody, especially somebody who's just starting out in the same niche that you're in, but just doesn't know how to start or get going?
That's a great question. And honestly, I'm going to look to the book I just wrote. My book is called Breaking the I Can't Cycle. And I want to go to a thing I wrote in this book. On page 71 of the paperback version, it says, most of our thinking is based on learning that was taught through fear. I really look back on this line that I wrote in this book when I was writing it a year ago, and it just revolutionized my thinking when I came to that understanding. Most of our thinking is based on learning that was taught through fear. There is so much of our life that is just wrapped around the idea of fear-based outcomes or not outcomes. And so we live our lives based on a filter of fear. If we would figure out how to remove that from our thinking, from our logic, we would get so much more advanced. And honestly, if I could go back 10 years and reframe my thinking about fear, I feel like I would be so much farther than I am right now. That doesn't matter. It's not like I've missed out on anything. We get frustrated when we feel like we've missed out on something. You haven't missed. You've just learned. And so now you put to use what you've learned and you advance.
Amazing stuff. We're going to have to thank our guest today for being a guest on Business Story of the Week. And before we cut out on this episode, I wanted to ask you, how can people get a hold of you? How can people learn more about what you're doing? And how do people engage with you? And we will transcribe this and put it in the show notes for everybody to find.
Yes, certainly. So my email address is coaching@kevinelworth.live. And that's also my website, kevinelworth.live. So that would be the place to get in touch with me. Let me know how I can help, how I can serve you, how I can encourage you along in the fight that you're trying to accomplish in your life, in your business, in your ministry, whatever.
All right, amazing. So you did it. Thank you for being a guest on the show today. Let me tell you what you can expect next. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all this, we're going to cut it into an episode. It will go on the Business Story of the Week page. So make sure you go on Apple Podcasts, review us, like us, go on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to us on Spotify. And this will come out in the next 30 days or so, depending on our workload and how many shows we have. We have had a lot of interest in the show lately, so we may be a little backed up, but the show will get out. In the meanwhile, we will send you clips that feel free to share on social. Also, the full episode, feel free to share any way that you like. The content is yours to share and put out there. We just ask that you mark us and tag us in the notes if you do. So in the copy, put hashtag Business Story of the Week, link back to us. We would appreciate that. And if you think that you might be interested in doing more podcasts, live ones and studio ones, Zoom ones, Riverside ones, there's a whole host of shows that likely, if you did this one and succeeded, you would probably be really great at, and a great way of getting your message out. So your host will talk to you about potentially getting you booked on a strategy call for a Business Story of the Week's sister company, Podcast Cola, or becoming a YouTube influencer through Viral Mirage. Thanks again for being a part of this. Looking forward to working with you.